So we're gonna go and show a video on how to make adjustments to your pitch of your projection arms by making adjustments to your pitch bracket. There are 3 key pieces of your pitch bracket. You have these 2 bolt-in nuts and this last lock nut that adjust the pitch of the projection going out from your wall all the way out to the end of your awning. So this will affect the pitch of the actual arms going, from your wall outwards. And these 2 nuts will make adjustments and will affect the pitch, or I guess the level of your projection arms as it sits on your frame. And so the best way, so we're going to show you practices on how to avoid stripping or cross-threading your screws that are sitting in your pitch bracket. Because there's a lot of load that's sitting on each one of these screws. We're going to go ahead and walk you all through the steps in making adjustments first to how your arm sits on your frame. So the first things first, we're going to go ahead and start removing the pressure on this main adjustment piece. We're removing the pressure on this nut by making alterations to your lock nut. So we're going to go ahead and start making adjustments, start loosening the pressure to your lock nut. And that's avoiding putting pressure, forward pressure, on this piece. Because what's going to end up happening is you're going to make adjustments to this screw to change the level of your arm, how it sits on your frame. But right now, the reason why we're loosening up this lock nut is so that this can move now freely, back and forth. If it's fully tightened, when you're trying to move it, you're going to start to strip and cross thread your bolt that's attached right here. So first things first, loosen up your lock nut. Then you're going to want to go ahead and loosen up by taking the load off this bottom nut. Take the load off it and start loosening this up as well. You're going to loosen it. Now you take a look. So this is right now all the load taken off of the projection arm. You're going to go ahead, and if you want to start making alterations to how it's sitting, say you want to bring the level of the arm upwards, what you're going to do is you're going to take the load again off of this one nut here, this one bolt here, and start tightening it. By tightening it, you're raising the level. So I'm on the wrong way. There you go. We're going to go ahead and tighten it. Just as a demonstration. Say if you want your arm to sit up this high, ordinarily you would not want it to sit up this high. You can see that it's sitting above your torsion bar. So what you're going to have to do now is you're going to want to start dropping the level of your projection arms to be in line with your torsion bar. You start wanting to drop the level of your projection arms to be in line with your torsion bar. By doing so, you're going to start to loosen this nut. And you can start to see it drop as I slowly turn this and loosen it. And again, all the pressure is being taken off of this one bolt and nut. Because we've loosened these 2 bolts here, we can now start to freely move it and drop it. And you can see it. Now it is sitting level with your torsion bar. Okay, once you get it to where you want it to be, you can start tightening everything up. So we're going to start tightening up all bolts just to make sure everything is sitting comfortably. Well, actually, before you do that, you're going to want to go ahead and make sure your lock nut is fully tightened. By doing so, you're going to want to have it lift up, start tightening it against your frame. You don't want to put too much pressure. This is just to relieve the pressure so it can sit comfortably. Tightening. But again, to avoid cross-threading, don't put too much pressure on this lock nut. And now, once you got this situated, you still see that it's still sitting level. Go ahead and start tightening up the bottom nut as well. And again, do not tighten it too severely, otherwise you will risk cross-threading your screws. That's how you adjust the level to prevent any kind of telescoping through your fabric or to prevent it from drooping too low beneath your frame. This is how you'll make adjustments to the level of the arm as it sits on your pitch bracket. The next step now that we're going to show you is how to make adjustments to the pitch as it extends out. So imagine your arm fully extended out from your pitch bracket. You can now adjust the level as it sits on the pitch bracket. And the way you do that is through this lock nut. Okay? So what you're going to have to do, you don't want to go ahead and start immediately making adjustments to the lock nut. Once it's fully extended out, there's a lot of weight that's sitting on this projection arm. So in order to make adjustments, what you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to lift up the arm as it's fully projected out and start making adjustments to it. So as you would imagine it, you'd imagine your arm lifting up the projection arm as it's fully extended out and making adjustments to your lock nut. By loosening the lock nut, you're allowing the projection arm to come further and adjust its pitch to sit out further. By loosening, you're now dropping the pitch. By loosening the lock nut, you're dropping the pitch, okay? By tightening, on the other hand, still do the same thing. Take all the load off the pitch bracket and begin tightening this lock nut. The more you tighten it, the higher it sits up, okay? So as you tighten it, the higher it sits up because this arm is now getting pushed further back into the pitch bracket. That'll allow the projection arms to extend out and lift up higher. And the reason why you would do this, the only reason why you're making these adjustments to your lock nut, and again, make sure to lift up the projection arms so to prevent cross-threading of this bolt and of your lock nut. But the only reason you do this in the first place is if your arms are projected out fully, and your awning is fully projected out, if one side is dipping lower or higher than the other side, that's when you know you got to start making adjustments by using the pitch bracket. And again, on the flip side, if we're looking at the beginning of our video, the only reason why you've been making adjustments to these two bolts, or I guess this one in primary, the only reason why you've been making adjustments here is to prevent the arm from shooting through the fabric, because there have been instances where the arm has been sitting up too high and you can see it through the fabric, or the arm is sitting too low and it looks goofy. So this is how you make adjustments to both sets of arms to make sure they're level with your torsion bar so it looks even, normal, and clean.